Hi, I'm Ross Taylor, your host and guide for Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. I'm also a life coach who supports empaths and sensitive souls, guiding them on the journey back to self-acceptance and inner alignment. My passion is connecting with like-minded souls, and these conversations are part of fulfilling my purpose and serve to deepen our collective exploration of what it means to live in connection with the sacred. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space, other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. If you enjoy these conversations, please subscribe, rate, and share so others can find their way here. So pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today on Sacred Sundays, our guest is Tammra Broughton, aka DJ sprouT. Tammra has been moving dance floors for over 2 decades, from underground raves to festivals, stages like Shambhala Music Festival, Bass Coast, and Wicked Woods. With experience in 5 rhythms and over 30 years as an advanced holistic practitioner, she has held space for healing in diverse environments. Guided by a deep love for conscious intuitive movement and music, sprouT layers in grooves, heart, and intention to lightly guide dancers through journeys of rhythm and release. She invites us to play with new states of connection, presence, and transformation, within, without, and with each other. Welcome, Tammra. So good to have you here.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
It's such an interesting full circle moment because I think we were trying to figure out how long ago it was, but let's just say 12 years ago, I was a guest on your radio show that you hosted back in the day.
It's true. It was called Living Proof Radio, I believe.
Right. And we used to live in Squamish together, and now we're both on the island. And so this is a cool way to reconnect.
Yeah. And we've been a part of, we were in an immersion together for 12 months, and you did a little bit of life coaching with me and my husband. Yeah. We've had all kinds of interactions.
Very cool. So Tammra is actually going to begin by reading a story to us. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Tammra.
Okay. Awesome. Here we go. I once had a dream about a beautiful young Native American princess whom her tribe referred to as Strong Swan. She had the ability to capture your heart with one glance. Her voice floated through time and space as though with wings of knowingness, light and always truthful. In my dream, she was sitting upon her white horse, and her horse looked as if to be slowly dancing near a healthy, vigorous fire. It was late afternoon, and her mother was preparing the dinner her father had just hunted, bison with fresh gathered leaves, berries, and herbs. The youngsters were also gathered around the delicious meal over the fire, anticipating dinner, their mouths watering. Strong Swan began to tell the youngsters about a typical day with the other young women of the tribe, how they always discussed the nature of their lives, the meaning of love, and of course, how it is wise to be attentive to the elders and traditions of their tribe. She said, "Today, however, was so special and somewhat different. New. Today I decided to ride out on my own over the tundra, crossing the vibrant crystal blue-green river near the lush and mysterious forest until I came to a halt at the base of a colossal mountain, and I looked up to the very top. I have to admit, I thought to myself, indeed, this mountain looks mighty high. How could I ever climb it? And then I looked down into the river and saw my reflection and asked myself, who am I to be? And then I looked into the forest and became interested in what lies within. And finally, I looked back across the great tundra, and I knew by heart my way back home. And then I looked back up to the tip top of this enormous mountain. All of the youngsters were looking up at Strong Swan with such adornment and were hypnotized by her beauty. I vividly remembered that in my dream, Strong Swan then closed her eyes and began to take a deep and meaningful breath, which seemed to go all the way to her core, to the very depth of her soul, and then expanded out into her chest until she could no longer fill her body with any more life-giving oxygen. I could hear her speak, "Great Spirit of the earth and all that is, please allow all of the elders, present and past, to fill into my heart with their wisdom and insights and remind me of the tools that I have to create a miraculous and loving life for myself. To let go, to let flow, and allow these great tools to bestow upon me the courage to set in motion on this great journey to the top of this mountain. May I have faith in my intuition and breathe life into each and every gift that I know I now have at any given moment. May each day serve as a new and exciting lesson to live out to the fullest, and may I remember to acknowledge myself in each and every process. Strong Swan then looked down into the eyes of every youngster and across to her family and friends and said, "And now let us be ever so grateful for this wonderful and delicious meal." I then woke up and wondered if Strong Swan ever did climb the mountain, but for some reason it just didn't seem to matter because I felt so grateful for the day. I could see the potential looking back at me in the mirror, and I knew that whatever happened, that I would be safe and trust in the knowingness of my own heart and soul.
I love that. That's great. I
Thank
can
you.
see why you
Yes.
chose that story.
Yeah, so when you asked me, I remembered in one of my years when I was studying neuro-linguistic programming in my first year, we had to write a metaphor story. And that's what I wrote. And I went back to it and it came up just randomly recently. And I actually cried and got goosebumps because,
Mm.
yeah, what was to come after all of that was, again, like you said, everything feels really full circle right now. Just going back to those tools.
Yeah, I think we've all climbed many mountains since you wrote that.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, that's what I love about that is it's so relatable to the experiences we have in our lives and the challenges that we face and the strength that we seek in ourselves. And what I love about the story is that you don't know whether she climbed it or not. You assume she did, but really it was all about tapping into the gifts inside that were already there.
Absolutely. And that's what I've always taught people through my sessions and I still do is that we have the tools, the qualities and resources within. Sometimes we just need help and guidance to find them, and that's what I love about that work and is just working with people and teaching people that they have that ability within them. And just like talking about intuitive dance or conscious dance or intentional dance temple 5 rhythms, I'll tell a little story about that. Actually, my first 5 rhythms dance was in Squamish with Bettina Roth. And I thought, intuitive dance, I know how to do that. I've been doing that my whole life. And what's really interesting is I got there and the music started, Bettina spoke a little bit, and I couldn't move because I realized in that moment that even though I always, even from a young child, was always dancing to music and having fun, on some level, it was performative. And going to 5 rhythms until I got sick, I learned how to listen to my body and how it wanted to move rather than my brain wanting to show how I could move. And so there was a significant difference in that. And people will say to me now, I DJ at a thing called Dance Temple, which is intentional dance as well. It's not really facilitated. They say, "Oh, I can't go to that. I need somebody to show me the moves." And I say, "Well, just come and sit there. Just sit, journal, stretch." Even my husband, he's very shy and introverted. He just comes and stretches. So there is no right or wrong way to dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it just, to me, it was a huge awareness of how powerful movement and dance and music can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a time when I lived in Squamish that I would drive down to Commercial Drive and go to Bettina's classes on Commercial Drive. For me, it was really liberating. And I used to go to Just Dance with people from Squamish, and I love that as well. But I've definitely been on my own journey with conscious dance. My body loves it, but my mind sometimes struggles with it, and there's sort of some limitations. Like I think
Yeah.
actually we talked online back and forth about Dance Temple, and you invited me up to the Comox Valley for Dance Temple outside. And I was like, oh, that's an edge for me. It's like, I prefer the dimly lit, gym with some anonymity, and that works for me, right?
Yes,
So,
there is one of those dances here. It's called Alchemy, and it's on
okay,
Wednesday nights, and it's ecstatic dance as well.
nice.
And it does feel like there's a little more anonymity there because it is dark and it's just for adults as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember going to, when I lived in the Okanagan, there was a woman who facilitated what she called jungle dance. And it was a little bit more tribal and a lot more rhythm. And I loved it, but it was really small groups when it got started, so that was part of the appeal as well. Like, we had 5 or 6 of us in this space, and it was just really great. Movement is such a healing modality.
Yeah, for me as well, I had some reservations about going back into the intentional dance space when I moved to the Comox Valley because through right around 2017, 18, I started to notice that there was something really wrong with my health. And for many years, right up until the end of 2023, having moved from Squamish, then landed in Nanaimo because we couldn't quite make it here because of COVID, going through extreme depression, which I can't even describe what that feels like to, I don't even have words for it. But let's just say I have a whole lot of empathy for people who go through it because, yeah, I don't even know who that person was. It felt like something had a hold on me. And when people say that they're fighting for their life, I'd always be like, shouldn't say the word fight. And now it's like, whoa, I get it, because I actually gave up, and then I realized, I'm like, "Oh, there's got to be something going on here." And then I took a course called energetic interference removal, and I started to remote view myself, and I saw that there was a lot, Ross, of different types of energetic entities attached to my body. And for
Mm.
2 years, I worked on removing them. It took me that long. And then my soul felt like it was back in my body, and that I was now in my body again. Because if you ask my friends how I was like before, they were like, yeah, it wasn't you. Like, I'm slightly obnoxious, pretty loud person. And I was quiet. I had very little emotion. I was flat. I couldn't access my intuition, which is a really weird
Wow.
feeling.
Okay.
Really weird. Like, I couldn't access it. It was like, nope. And I couldn't laugh. I couldn't cry. I don't even think there was a whole period of time where I didn't even sneeze. Like, I didn't have, like, my body was dying, and it was very scary. Then when I learned how to do this energetic interference removal, it's like I reclaimed my sovereignty of my own soul. Like, I pulled my soul back into my body. And I do this quite often now. I check to see if anything's attached to me. I do something that I create what's called a heart soul essence bubble, only letting in what's good and reflecting back what isn't for me. And then I have a whole process of how I remove those so that it doesn't fling onto other people. I don't give it to the earth. I feel like she's had enough. I actually create a fire in the fourth dimension, and I send it there. And I ask that if there is anything benevolent inside of that entity, that it be sent back to its original essence. So that feels really in integrity for me, but some things are just they're just like mechanical things that are in my body or on my
Mhm.
body. Yeah. So I was very leery about going to dance temple because I thought, is my nervous system ready yet to deal with? Because a lot of people process while they're dancing. And I'm not sure if they're aware that their stuff can jump over to other people. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. But finally I went, and I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. Like, this is fantastic. I loved it. I danced. I had a great time. And I was starting to DJ again, and I was starting to connect with my reason for wanting to DJ again. Being a holistic practitioner, like, what do I want to promote through my DJing? And yeah, I started to meet the community. And then while I was away DJing at Wicked Woods Music Festival, which was amazing, kind of like a pilgrimage back to where it all started for me, my cat, Ivan, of 14 years passed. And
Mm.
it was shocking. It was shocking to me. So I cried a lot. I made sure I cried, and I just went and wailed in the woods, which kind of was perfect because I could do that. I could just go and release all of that energy. And I came back, and when I finally felt like I could get out without crying, and I started a brand new job, like right as soon as I got home, too. I went to a dance temple and I couldn't dance, but instead I wrote a letter to Ivan, and then I flipped the page and I wrote the letter back, and I just sobbed and I cried. And I knew a few people there, and some people I hardly knew came over, and there has to be consent at these events, and they were just there, just holding me. And I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, like I really needed this.
Mhm.
And yeah, I realized through that process that I had not processed a lot of other grief. And I've since then been really digging into grief and what it really is. And like life is just a cycle of all those levels of grief over and over again. I'm just like,
Hmm.
whoa, this is really big. And that part of myself was very repressed. And then the second week I went back to dance temple, I cried and danced and moved and flung my body around and moved that energy through, realizing I had not grieved my grandmothers who passed on when I was 10, the grief of going through a divorce, the grief of um my auntie who had just passed. Like, because my dad is a mortician and was a coroner, I wasn't allowed to cry when I was
Right.
younger. So
Hmm.
I was like, I am tough. I can handle anything. Anything comes my way. But Ivan broke me wide open. And then it was like all of these amazing emotions have come up. And so now I'm so much more aware of how I curate a set, the songs that I choose. I look up like everything. I look up the words, I look up the meaning of the words. DJing for Dance Temple has allowed me to grow as a DJ because it's not just the same kind of genre or just playing a set for the nightclub or whatever and getting everybody pumped. It's like starting from really mellow up into this high fire type of energy and then back down. And having been DJing for 25 years, I realized that I can't just segue to a song. It has to mix perfectly.
Hmm.
So it's stretched me.
Right.
And I've learned so much since starting this journey again with intentional dance.
Wow. And you're telling a story, but just with the music and the
Mhm.
through line of that music. Yeah. I was just going to actually jump back to the where you started in your story, because when I think about the energetic interference, like I'd love a little bit more detail around what that looked like for you, because I'm imagining that you had a nervous system that was sensitive, that was open for too long, and that literally you were collecting all these experiences. And the reason I'm asking is because I imagine listeners would benefit from understanding what that means, because a lot of us get subjected to things that we don't even realize we're taking on. And so when you talk about energetic interference, that's what you're talking about, I assume?
Yes, I'm a very empathetic person. I love that I have that ability. I also had no idea. I had no boundaries,
Mm.
no knowledge of what boundaries looked like. So I grew up in a very chaotic home, parents who were alcoholics, people coming in and out of our house all the time. I started a nutrition practice, and I mean, I remember coming back from school and starting up and coming home and crying because of the stories that I had heard and taking it on, not even realizing it. And even in my first relationship, like, I'm gonna heal you, I'm gonna fix you. I didn't realize that I had allowed myself to be this receptacle for people to almost like dump on me. And you know who this is, Caroline Mace.
Hmm.
I went to see her speak in Scottsdale, Arizona at an event called Celebrate Your Life. And I had this major realization. She was speaking, and one of the audience members stood up and said something like, well, what about this woman's situation? How does that apply to this? And she said, hey, listen, let's get one thing straight. Never be a garbage receptacle for other people's stuff. And I just had this my whole core started to vibrate. I I was uncontrollably crying. I couldn't speak, actually. Couldn't speak for probably about an hour after that. I took my journal up to her to just sign it, and she actually read what I wrote because I had stopped writing, and she finished it and then kind of nodded a yes to me, and I was like I knew what she was saying to me almost telepathically. So I came home and I had a conversation with my husband at that time and said, "Hey, all of these things that you've said to me, I willingly took on, but I'm going to have to give them back to you because I've got my own
Mm.
stuff to deal with." And that was my first realization of taking on somebody's stuff. And
Hmm.
and whether he was aware, and I just said, however you want to deal with it is up to you. Like, but it's not mine, it's yours. And progressively went on. As you know, I put on an event called the Conscious Goddess Festival, and whoa, that was a massive learning in boundaries. And I was a little taken back by how things unfolded for both of those years. And then I remember thinking, like, after that was done and Tony and I got married, I was like, I am letting go of this and this and this. And then it just seemed like right then, it was like once I had let it all go, my body just started to fall apart. And it wasn't until about 2022 that I found this course, and it was just the tools that I needed. And it wasn't like I wasn't aware of these things before, but I
Uh-huh.
had lost hope. I had given up. I had also realized that I was so desperately looking for something outside of me to heal me, looking for a healer. I remember even going on TikTok and getting scammed because I was that desperate. You know, somebody just telling me they were going to heal me. And I can't even believe that happened, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. Just spending a lot of money on different modalities and healers and shamans and vitamins and therapies. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I'm through that and fasting, learning how to fast for my age, and fasting for women is different than men. And then learning about my genes. I finally sent in to get some gene testing. Those three things combined helped me realize I'm not crazy, allowed me to reclaim my health and my soul sovereignty, and gave me the tools to create really good boundaries. When people say to me, I'm going to do Reiki on you, I'm like, no, I would really appreciate if you did not do that. Or I'm going to pray for you. And I'm like, a lot of times I'll just say thank you. And then I just reframe it or protect myself from whatever it is that they're trying to do to me. It's just been really interesting. I had an experience very recently where this person wanted to light incense at one of my events, and I had said, I'm really sensitive, as are a lot of people here, to these perfumes and things like that. And then he closed his eyes and he said, "Oh, I'm." And then I said, "Excuse me, I'm working," and he wouldn't let me kind of get by him. And I said, "Excuse me," and I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm an intuitive healer, and I'm just trying to see what's wrong with you and heal you." And I was like, "No, that's a big no." Like, I was just like, I said, "I can see that your intentions are really good. And I would just like to, just in this, brief moment, just let you know that you have to ask permission to do that to people." And it didn't quite land that well. And I'm hoping to reconcile with him. But I just didn't have those kind of boundaries before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And wow, there's so many things you've touched on in what you shared. And one of them, I think the key kind of theme throughout is this idea of boundaries, and how I think most of us, we don't have a sense of boundaries. We don't feel comfortable speaking our truth. And your example at the end with that healer is a prime example, right? Because so many people aren't used to hearing the truth and hearing the no, I'm not okay with that. And then there's a reaction. And I think for most of us that are sensitive, we know what that reaction feels like. And that's part of what we're avoiding when we set a boundary, or the need to set a boundary, is we don't want to have to feel what comes next. And that
Exactly.
is a huge thing to navigate. And to another thing that you said, like this whole idea of orienting outside of ourselves, that comes up a lot with many of the guests that I've had. And we come by that so honestly. We are oriented outside because that's how we survive when we're young. And so to flip that orientation inside and realize that we have everything we need inside of us to support ourselves and help ourselves, it seems like a foreign concept. And it's
Yeah,
not to say that things outside of ourselves can't support us on the journey, but
exactly.
most of the work I've done, there's the beginning of that with support, and then we have to integrate it. We have to do the true groundwork to really create change in our lives. We're the ones who have to act on it. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
complicated.
interesting. Yeah, it is. And it's interesting because one tool I learned going through what I went through was a polyvagal theory, and that, being around other people is actually really healing. And so yes, it's really important to know how to self-regulate and to reach in and find our own tools, but sometimes it's not easy, and we need to have someone around to co-regulate. And so
Hmm.
I think there is a fine balance between feeling confident that we can navigate something on our own, or when we actually need to reach out for help, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2019. I was sitting at waiting for a ferry, and I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about polyvagal theory, and this light bulb went off and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to learn about all of this, because for me, it became this perspective that changed everything. I mean, we all have a nervous system. We all share the same wiring. And yeah, I could just go on and on about that because it's a game changer. So many of the things we talk about come back to the nervous system being dysregulated. And how many of us are walking around in fight or flight and we don't even realize it because we're so used to it and the impact that that has on our body. And I think you went down the same rabbit hole I did with Deb Dana, who does an amazing job of simplifying all of that knowledge and making it really relatable and useful. And so many of the things that she says are so helpful just to realize the impact
book,
that we're having.
I'm just getting started on that book, actually. Anchored?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just coming back to those tools again now. It almost feels like I know what I did when I was so unwell that brought me back, but I also have this and I'm also going through menopause.
Okay.
So estrogen messes with everything, messes with memory, vision. I feel like I just got to this great place, and then it was like, no, just kidding. Now you're gonna go through menopause.
Another mountain.
Another frickin' mountain, but I'm freaking here for it.
And the other thing you pointed to was this idea of co-regulation. And when I learned about that, I thought it was really interesting because, as you know, I worked in wellness centers and treatment centers, and most of us haven't had a safe person to co-regulate with. That's part of the problem. When I think about relationships and I see that you have two dysregulated nervous systems trying to figure out how to get through the relationship or work out the relationship, well, of course it's not going to work. You need at least one person to anchor you, one person to be regulated so that you can co-regulate with them. And that's why pets are so helpful, because we can co-regulate with our pets. They'll come and sit on our lap when I say that I don't have a pet, but I know that when I'm visiting others, I know that because a cat will come and sit on my lap, and I love it. It's beautiful to have that experience, and we don't need other people, but it sure helps. But it's such a foreign experience as well.
That's true. I think that's why I had such a hard time. It's interesting because I'm an all-in person and just trust anybody. But now I'm at this place where I'm like, wait a second, I need to know more about you before I let you do any work on me or things like that. And with my beloved and amazing husband, Tony, who has stood by me through all of this, I noticed that once I started to feel better and I'm feeling really strong now, I'm still dealing with some health issues, but I feel like, I have my mental health, and that trumps everything else because without my mental health, nothing matters. But what I noticed was all of a sudden now, all of that time, he was trying to hold the space and just be there for me. And we encountered something last year, I think. Something came up that we had never experienced in our relationship before, and it dawned on me that he has been holding space for me for so long that now stuff's coming up that, like, he was traumatized from what he was watching me go through. Like, seeing your wife at 78 pounds is probably going to be traumatizing. And also coming from a family where they didn't talk about feelings, very German, very stoic. He's just starting to learn how to talk about his emotions. And we actually talked about it recently. We're like, you know what? We're both in a pretty good place. Now is a good time to actually get some counseling and get some tools for the next phase of our life, which is now we're in our 50s, so that we can roll into our retirement feeling like, like we've got a plan. Yeah, because it's just been survival mode for so long. Or now we're like, oh, okay, like we made it. And also Tony knows how to go and take care of himself and regulate himself through his sports. I just started doing yoga again, and I haven't done it for so many years. It was so great to just go, I can do this because it's easy on my system. This is something that isn't overly hard. It's something I can commit to. But yeah, I do feel like what you said about having people in your life that know how to co-regulate. Tony and I going back and forth for each other with that, for sure. I think our solution to everything is just make a joke about it and laugh. He would put on funny shows. He would put on like comedians. He would put on America's Got Talent. He put on like The Voice. He put on all these things just in hopes that I would be able to connect with my emotions. We didn't watch anything scary, political, nothing like that, because I just couldn't handle it. And I'm so grateful to Tony, because I really do feel like he brought me back to life through. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at I have a tear. And we would like cheer. And then when one time when I was really underweight and I sneezed, I was like, oh, I sneezed, but I hope I didn't break a rib. Like, it was wild. It was so wild. Now, sometimes, like, I think we'll have a reaction and it'll be the real thing that we want to say, but then we'll make a goofy face or something. And we'll laugh about it, and I'm like, and then we'll be like, you know what? I heard what you said. I hear you. And rather than being reactive and getting into an argument, which we rarely ever do, yeah, we kind of make a joke about it. But then I'm like, hey, there's some things that we have to take seriously now. Oh, yeah. But laughter has just been such a gift.
Laughter is huge medicine.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take a left turn into DJing.
Okay.
So I want to hear more about your passions and tell us about your experience of sharing your music and what makes it such a passion for you.
Oh my goodness. It is in my blood, Ross. I remember dancing to songs with my mom, and she would play records. My mom told me recently that I had a Girls Just Want to Have Fun Cyndi Lauper record that she said, just play it over and over and over and dance and over and over again. And she said I would just entertain myself for hours with just putting on records and dancing. And I really felt like through my teens, I had a group of friends. We were really, I guess, eclectic in a way. Like, we were into not the more popular music. We were more into the punk rock bands and into new wave music, things like The Cure and U2. And U2 was obviously got huge, but when they just started, they weren't that huge. And I remember starting to collect those records, and then I had this really incredible experience where I moved to Lake Louise, and I started dating a skateboarder, and I started getting into more of the punk rock music, and I think I called myself a music snob. And then I got an opportunity to DJ this punk rock music in Kamloops at the local bar there. So I played, music like Fugazi and Green Day. They weren't popular back then. I saw them at the Legion in Kamloops. And it's a really funny story. I actually had to talk the drummer out from under the van because he was so high.
Wow.
Trey, you have to play. You have to come out. And he's like hiding under the van. Side note. Anyway, yeah, so I was super passionate about, always counterculture. I was always into the counterculture, and anything that was trendy or popular, I was like, blah. Like, I couldn't even tell you what the most popular song is on the radio right now. And I mean, I guess as a DJ, I should know that, but I'm about to venture into some more wedding DJing, so I'll be forced to learn that, and that's fine, because I think learning about all kinds of music is good. I've had 2 country themed events that I recently DJ'd, and I'm like, what? I only know old country. And so it was like a massive learning curve for me. So right around the age of 21, I went with a friend, and we backpacked around Europe and for 3 months. And yeah, I went there totally into punk rock, listening to punk rock in my headphones. This was in 93. So I think I was listening to a Walkman probably, and had my tapes or whatever. But I just remember listening to songs in my headphones, being like, rocking out. I actually encountered a real punk rocker when I was in London, and I was like, whoa, I am not punk rock at all. I am like more like California punk rock. And that guy scared the heck out of me. And then I was in Prague, and this is where my friend's grandparents lived. So we were able to stay with them for a couple of weeks. So I was able to relax a bit more. So when we were in Prague, we met this group of guys I must have been on the train or something. And they had said, you got to come out to this rave. And we're like, what is a rave? We don't know what you're talking about. And they said, oh, it's a party out in the woods. And we're like, well, that sounds fun. Well, sure, let's go. And these guys seemed really nice. They didn't seem weird. It was like a group of 6 or 7 of them. Very good looking. Very, very good looking. And we were like, 2 young girls, like, sure, let's go. And so we went out to this rave outside of Prague. they told us this rave had been going on for 2 months. And so there had just been DJs going night after night. And I remember there were people wearing the flight goggles and they were all dressed up. And then I'd look over and there'd be this guy standing beside a tree with a big top hat. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I don't recognize this kind of music. And I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it was probably techno and, or trance maybe. And yeah, so I had a very interesting experience there. I won't go fully into it. It was a bit scary because it took me 2 days to come down from that experience. And then, boom, we went with these guys. They said, you're going to come with us to Amsterdam. We're going to take you to another rave. We're like, wow, cool. Okay. So we all took the train to Amsterdam. Actually, we went to I think it was like a church youth hostel or something. And so they said, oh, you have to be in by 8 or 9 p.m. If you want to stay here. And it was the only place we could find to stay. We said, okay. So we knew that we weren't coming back for the whole night, right? And so we put our stuff away and we got on a train 2 hours outside of Amsterdam. We went to this beautiful, it looked like a theater. It was this huge theater, gorgeous place. And of course, we weren't really dressed for it. So yeah. Anyway, we got in. They said the only reason we're letting you in is because you're Canadian and we know that you're probably not going to cause any problems. And we sat there and we were in a foyer of probably multiple different foyers. And then they opened up the curtains and then there were these DJs and we had just the most epic night of dancing. And so that's really what inspired me to want to DJ. My friend and I were just dancing all night. Everyone was so nice. We had a great time. We got on the train back. We got back in at 6 a.m. We got the evil look from the people they're like, where were you? And we're like, we're going to bed. And so, yeah. And then I just, I came back and invested in some turntables. And I just thought, this other really cool thing that happened is my stepmom had a stack of records in the closet. And she said, I'm not quite sure what to do with these. These are some disco and funk and soul records that my boyfriend gave me when I was 17. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And she said, he was a DJ in the 70s for a Calgary radio station. And I thought, wow, these are probably valuable records. So I took them and I started playing them and they were the best. Some of them were like popular disco songs that we've all heard, but a lot of them weren't. A lot of them were just these unbelievable, very, very well done, very complex almost songs that I just thought we have to have a party and listen to these. So I started throwing disco parties and that's how it kind of started. And then I started going from Golden, I started going to Calgary to buy records. And then yeah, our parties were instantly a hit. They were sold out by like 8 p.m. And I just thought, oh my goodness, we're really on to something here. But I had a lot of conflict doing these parties because there were a lot of drugs and alcohol involved. For one of the Valentine's Day parties, we did have a friend OD the next morning and pass. And that's when I really realized like, hey, what am I promoting here? What am I encouraging? You know, I was doing everything that I could. I was putting literature up in the bathroom. I was telling everybody, watch your drinks and don't mix these drugs. And people were actually kind of mad at me because they're like, why would you do that? And I guess I was, they're doing it all the time. You can get your drugs tested and stuff at different events now, anytime, anywhere. But I had found out this fellow had been partying days prior. So it didn't totally happen because of that event, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have happened had he not been there. I don't know. Maybe it would have. I don't know. But I had to take some time to really think about it. And I think from that point forward, I was like, my event has to have some kind of meaning behind it. So that's when I started doing more fundraisers and more bringing this is an opportunity. If I'm going to bring people here, I want to bring more awareness to, I did a lot of fundraisers for the Women's Center in Golden and Women in Business and different cultures and things that were coming up through that culture. Rave culture is all about, community and everybody's welcome. And I just love that environment. I love that environment where people can come as they are, no matter what they look like, what their job is. You can be a super nerd and be cool. You can, that culture is really made for the people that are, maybe don't fit into the regular club scene and things like that. Yeah.
Mm.
And same with Dance Temple. I'm loving it because this is a sober event. There's no doubt about it. People show up to just be free, be themselves. Maybe they're working through something. Maybe they're needing to shake off something. There's no facilitation. That's what I love most about it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's my favorite part about ecstatic dance is that it's not facilitated. I pick a theme. It's really up to them if whether or not they want to roll with that theme.
Mm-hmm.
We always have a little altar there. People can choose cards and things like that. But yeah. And then all of a sudden, this last winter, I was really wondering where I fit in the valley because I'm still pretty new. And anytime a DJ moves somewhere, even if you have all the experience in the world, you still have to build a relationship with the community. Unless you're a superstar, of course, and everybody knows who you are. But because I had taken such a big pause and was going through a lot and just coming back into my own feelings, and over the Christmas holidays, I was really reflecting a lot about who has been supporting me? Where am I wasting my energy and time trying to fit in? And where am I actually being celebrated? And I really consciously, with all the compassion in my heart and just let go of people, I cut some cords. And I was like, I don't think they see the value in what I'm offering here. And that's okay. And that's maybe happening for a reason. And this year, if people are into numerology, it's a 1 year, it's a let's start over. It's the year of the horse. Regardless of whether or not those systems are real or not, it's what everybody's putting energy into. And so I can feel it. And since I did that, I feel like I'm on this horse that I can barely hang on to. And so I have 6 events this month. It's February.
Wow.
It's a short month. I have 2 events on Thursday and then 2 events on Saturday. Oh, wait, I have 5 events. I already had one. And then it's a big, huge fundraiser for something called YANA. You Are Not Alone. And yeah, the community really gets behind this one. They usually raise about $250,000. So I'm excited to be a part of that. But I birthed an event that I think I'm like, finally, my thing. Like, because I'm like, I want to do something, but I don't want it to be exhausting. I don't want to deal with I don't want it to be necessarily politically charged. I don't want it to be spiritual. I just want it to be fun and creative because when I was so ill, I realized that art and creativity was just it was so necessary for my recovery. So my friend sent me this video of this woman doing something called Craft Rave in Toronto. So she's talking about it and there's a couple of flashes to what she's doing, but she's knitting while she's DJing, which I thought was hilarious. I mean, I won't be able to do that, but I'm just such an ideas person that I can see the whole big picture and how this idea could grow. And it pans out to people sitting at tables in this restaurant and it's dimly lit and they're working on their needlepoint or they're working on, painting or maybe they're making a vision board. And so right away, as soon as my friend sent it to me, she goes, this would be really cool. And within a week, I'd already put it out in our local Facebook groups like, hey, I'm going to do this. Is anybody interested? I had so many responses. So many people wanted to be involved. Our first one was a success. So I said, I'm going to have it in the city that I live in, which is Comox. And I started looking around and I noticed this restaurant because I thought she was doing it in a restaurant. Maybe I could support some local restaurants. And sure enough, I found a place. There was a lot of construction for 2 years and a lot of businesses lost a lot of money. So I went and I proposed this idea to them. Well, they were very excited. It's a restaurant called Avenue Bistro. Our first event, which was a daytime, all ages, it was a $10 to $15 donation. Nobody turned away. We filled the place, 60 people. I ran into the owner, the chef there. He said that they served about 55 plates, which was great because they're not even open during the day. So they're very much on board with what we're doing. And so the next one that we're doing is on Friday, February 20th, and we're doing a nighttime one. So it's going to be from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. and that's going to be 18 plus. So I don't know what your question was, but basically why I do it, what propels me to do it is just, honestly, I don't have children. I realized through my experience that I love being in community. I love being creative. I love being around people. I love music and how it can shift our emotions. And sometimes it can be a little bit more like introspective. And then other times this more like, lifting feeling and a place where people can come and be creative, especially people who are a little bit shyer or more introverted. they have something to do with their hands, and they can just sit and they can still be a part of the party. So, yeah, I just think music is healing, community is healing, and I'm learning
Hmm.
how to make music. I'm a little bit concerned about AI right now and how it's influencing music, but I feel like we're going to find our way through that and a way to coexist. So I'm a little concerned with that, although I do know that there are some great AI tools for music. So I don't know, I just have to navigate my way through that. But I just love it, and I feel like it brings me a lot of purpose, and it fills me with life.
I love it. And I love the history of and the evolution of your journey with music and DJing. And I can imagine listeners really connecting to all, if not, some of the parts of what you shared. So that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I have an article coming out in Raven Tongue magazine talking about my journey from a female perspective, because it has not always been easy.
Mm,
Just being an artist in general is an act of, I guess, is like slightly political or activist, or I don't know, but some people aren't always receptive. And so there have been lots of situations where I've been shocked by some of the things that people have said to me, or have done to me physically while DJing. But if you include the years I was DJing, I'm over 25 years in this profession now. Being an event planner and a promoter, right? I can see the bigger picture of everything. I want to create spaces that feel safe for people. And I can't promise that nothing's going to happen. But I feel like this Craft Rave is really gentle in the way that it's mostly about just coming. And if nobody wants to participate in the crafts, they don't have to. They can sit with their friends and chit chat about whatever.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
I know I love it, and I can't claim it as my own, but I'm already bringing new things to it. Like we have crafting, we have some crafters and some artists doing some demos, and a little bit of vending. We're gonna have more ideas are coming up for our things for
Hmm.
us to do, but I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible and as easy on my nervous system as possible.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
perfect. So I think we've covered some great ground in this
Yeah.
conversation. So I love that. We touched on a whole bunch of different topics and feels really rich. And so I always
Yeah.
like to close with the same question. So I'll ask you that question. What's one simple way that someone could connect with the sacred today?
What's coming to me is that there is a song in you, and it's time for you to let it out. Whatever that is for you, there is a song inside, like Wayne Dyer said, don't die with your song still in you.
Mm,
So listen closely to what our soul is saying, and let it sing.
I really feel that. Thank you. And so grateful to have had you here and to have this conversation. It's a beautiful full circle moment, as I said at the beginning, and you sharing your passion and your gifts and your story and the mountains that you've had to climb. And so I really appreciate you being here on the podcast.
I am so grateful to be here. So you're welcome, and thank you. And yeah, it's really great what you're doing, Ross. All the things that you've done and all your different iterations I've been watching, and I'm so happy that we're just the next event that I'm doing. The theme is home, and it's like home is right inside of us. I'm just happy you're feeling more at home.
Hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
And I'll put all your links in the show notes, and people will be able to get a hold of you. So thank you
Yeah,
for
if
your
anybody
time.
has
And
any questions about anything we talked about, I am an open book. So by all means,
awesome.
connect with me.
Cool. Thanks
Okay.
again.
You're
Bye
welcome.
for now.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank you for joining us on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. If this conversation resonated, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, or share the podcast. It truly helps this work reach the people who are meant to find it. And if you'd like to explore more of my work or connect with me directly, you can visit rosstayler.com, and that is Taylor with ER.com. Until next time, may your day be slow and sacred.